Have you heard of a trauma bond? It's an intense connection that you have with somebody else. You think what you're feeling is love, but in fact, whenever you're separated from them, you feel your chest tighten with worry, and it's hard to be out of their presence. This connection actually isn't based on confidence and certainty. It actually is based on fear. Hi, I'm Dr. Kerry Kerr McAvoy, a mental health specialist with over 20 years of counseling experience, and I'm a narcissistic abuse survivor. I know the power of a trauma bond. I know how hard it is to break one. I've suffered from one myself. So today, let's talk about the ugly truth that no one is speaking about when it comes to trauma bond. Let's get into the 7 stages that erode away the victim's self-esteem, confidence, and free will. And if I'm describing something that you're battling, then you're going to want to stick around to the end when I actually begin to talk about some important tips on how to break a trauma bond, as well as how to begin your healing recovery process. And if you find mental health and relationship topics helpful, be sure to hit the like and subscribe button so that you're notified of my upcoming videos. Trauma bonds are what binds us to someone else, often the partner, but it doesn't have to be. It could be a family member, a loved one, even a friend. We get into such an intense connection with someone that we actually lose the connection to ourselves by becoming paralyzed and immobilized and addicted to the whole trauma bond cycle. So I'm going to describe the 7 stages that happen in a trauma bond and how it happens, how it unfolds, and then what you can do about it. So let's talk about the first stage. It's called the love bombing stage. Probably you're very familiar with this. With a lot of discussion about this online. If you've ever been into a relationship with a narcissistic or psychopathic person, they initially, when you meet them, create this amazing connection that you think you've met your perfect partner, your soulmate. They're mirroring and mimicking you and your behaviors, so you think you've met someone who's checked all the boxes. What you really have met is you've met yourself. There's a lot of excessive eye gazing combined with intermittent reinforcement techniques that is similar to what actually cult leaders use in their programming. And marketers do the same thing. That's how they make sales and convince you that you need the same thing. So a love bomber uses this strategy in order to convince you that you met somebody who has the same goals, priorities, and agendas as you. We like to think victims are codependent and weak people who are susceptible to these techniques, but actually large research studies have disproven that. If you've ever walked into a store or seen an online commercial and ended up buying something that you never intended to, you felt prey to the same techniques. It isn't the victims are any needier or more vulnerable than the rest of the population. That's how good these techniques are, particularly in the love bombing stage. They've learned how to tailor themselves to you so quickly that you develop this sense of fast rapport with them and become suggestible. Your guard is dropped and you start to trust way too quickly. And that's the first stage of a trauma bond, the love bombing, which then kind of naturally moves you into the next stage, which is called dependency. Here you are, you think you've met your perfect match, this ideal person, someone who really gets you and you can't imagine living life without. And so you start to then increasingly look to them for help. I think back when I met my ex and I remember telling my therapist that I had never met anyone I trusted more. I thought he was the safest person in the world. I know if you read my book, that's probably shocking because in Love You More, The Harrowing Tales of Lies, Sex Addiction, and Double Cross, you know that I've probably met one of the most dangerous people I could have ever met. Someone who actually intended me harm, not good. But I thought when I met him that I had met the most wonderful, selfless, fabulous person in the world. He mesmerized me. I thought I was falling in love, but I was being hypnotized. And that's what's happening during the second stage of dependency. We think we've met somebody fabulous and we begin to look to them for support. We can't imagine living life without them, and we hang on every moment with them, every contact with them. You'll wait by the phone. You'll ask their opinions about different aspects of your life. You basically are integrating them into your life and making them the center. During this phase, I kept my phone by my side face up so I'd never miss one of his texts. In fact, I structured my whole day around his availability. I didn't want to miss a single moment with him. As the dependency increases, toxic people then strengthen the bond by beginning to withdraw. They'll disappear for periods on end, raising your anxiety. You've experienced this before. If you've ever been to Las Vegas and played the slot machine, you've experienced what's called a reinforcement style of intermittent rate of reinforcement. It's highly addictive. In fact, mid-century research found the unpredictable schedule of rate of reward with a random payout is nearly irresistible. This type of reinforcement increases our dependency on this person and tightens the bond we feel with them. My ex would often go missing, and I didn't know at the time that he was a serial cheater. He'd be gone for long periods, causing the texting to become unpredictable. I might hear from him in the morning as he said hello. Then he might be gone all day, which I wasn't surprised he was working. But then in the evening, he might show up at 10 o'clock just to say goodnight, but another night he might show up for 8 o'clock for a long conversation. So I found myself unable to predict his availability, so I made myself more available in order not to miss a moment with him. It was this lack of schedule and predictability and this withdrawal of his that made me even more dependent on him, and I started to live my life as though I was on call. And of course I wanted any connection I could get because I thought myself madly in love with him. So I made myself wait and hold, make myself available so that I would never miss a moment with him. That is the dependency stage, the second stage of a trauma bond. So now you've fallen hard and you're off kilter and you're now increasingly dependent and you're making this person the center of your world, which sets you up for this third stage of a trauma bond called criticism. The criticism started in my relationship when the relationship became committed. And that was when he started to critique me. And it was always couched like he was trying to offer help, like he was doing me a favor, that he knew better and he wanted me to be the best person possible. If you've had this happen to you, that may be how you've experienced it as well, that they're helpful hints meant to improve. But think about this. Criticism should only come from those who are in positions of power or positions of expertise, like a mentor or coach, from your teacher, your pastor, your doctor, somebody in authority. People who are equals don't critique us. When someone offers unsolicited criticism on a regular basis, it's actually a manipulative practice. It says that they have a one-up position from us and that they know better than you and I do. It says that we need their help. A regular dose of criticism will actually work against you. It will chip away at your sense of self and make you insecure. So you'll start to take fewer chances. You'll become even more dependent, and it starts to dismantle you as a person. Think about the places where criticism is a regular part of life, like boot camp in the military. This happens on purpose. The intent of the sergeant who's wearing you down is doing this deliberately so that you stop thinking as an individual and you build a team. They're putting you together so that you think like a lean, mean thinking machine. They want you one mind to work together. But when toxic people do it, they're not doing it to make you better. They're actually doing it to make you less sure of yourself so that they have more control. This ends the third stage. Now we're increasingly dependent on them and we're feeling unsure, and it moves us right into the fourth stage of manipulation and gaslighting. So at this point, they're substituting your reality for theirs. And the point is so that they can become an authority on everything related to your life, on your world, and on your experiences. They use gaslighting to create confusion so that you're even more dependent on their feedback and wisdom for your sense of stability and functioning. Your sense of self is now eroding because now you don't even know for sure what's true, and a mental fog is happening that's being caused by cognitive dissonance. You're no longer for sure what's real. You're no longer for sure if you're in a relationship with a good person or a bad person, or if this relationship should be saved. This increasing turmoil and agony actually worsens your need for them. Now, you're no longer depending on their feedback of how to be a best person possible, but you're actually depending on them for functioning. Your independence is being beaten down by the criticism, and the gaslighting is making you unsure what is real and convinced that you can never do anything right. Which then, as this kind of wraps up, leads you into the 5th stage of resignation. In resignation, the conflict has gotten to be so painful that you're now just letting everything go. You're becoming easygoing. This has become so painful that you just want the person that you met initially back. You thought you had a great relationship, the love of your life, but now you can't seem to do anything right and to please them. So you're working hard just to let all the issues go and to renew the relationship so that it can be good again. And they'll give you brief moments of hope. They'll use breadcrumbing, they'll do a little bit of love bombing, and that's called breadcrumbing, just to help remind you of the good times, just enough to reconnect you so that you work harder all the more for the next good moment. And now you're giving up and you're submitting to everything, which moves you into the 6th stage of submission. By now, you've become easygoing, you've let things go, you're losing yourself, and you're just giving in. And this takes you to a very dark place, maybe depression or even suicidal ideation. I remember the stage I began to think super bad thoughts about myself. It was at the point that I was starting to ask myself, well, why was I living? And I remember getting physically ill and showing signs of being mentally worn down. We're no longer functioning anywhere close to where we used to be, and we feel like we've betrayed everyone and even ourselves. We feel beaten down and broken, which then brings us to the final stage called addiction. By this point, we are so low that we feel like we've lost ourselves and we're about ready to give up. So what happens is the abusive partner then renews the cycle, starts it all over again with a love bombing, so that we then get all excited, regenerate, think things that maybe can get better, and we start to push again, only to have the whole thing start over. There is also a physiological component to the addiction cycle, and that has to do with what happens into our body and chemistry. When we first meet someone, we feel this big surge of adrenaline that's based on excitement of this new person, and we have a large hit of dopamine. We kind of get crazy in love with dopamine, and sex helps with that as well. But as a relationship settles down, it moves into the next stage, which secretes more vasopressin and oxytocin. It's kind of the quieter, more bonded, connected stage. But what happens in these toxic relationships is we never move to the more committed, relaxing stage. We stay all hopped up on the dopamine and adrenaline stage. And that cycle becomes addictive because you move from excitement to fear. And then they also show up in this really rewarding way with the breadcrumbing and love bombing, and then withdraw it back to disappearing on you, making you feel desperate for them, which gets you all stoked up on adrenaline. So all of this, all of the chemistry, strengthens the addiction cycle as they pull you between the adrenaline and the excitement and the dopamine. There you have it. That's the making of a trauma bond. Is it so surprising that this is hard to break? That there's intense withdrawals? And I'll tell you, when I broke it, it was miserable. Because you're not only breaking a connection with someone that you think that you're madly in love with, someone who's played such a pivotal role, who's made themselves the center of your life. You're also breaking the chemistry, the connection, the physical connection that you had, that you've become dependent on in your own body. Isn't that awful? But I want to let you know that there's real help. So let me give you some advice on how to begin the stage of healing. First of all, know that you're breaking an addiction, and it's not simple. It's never simple. But I want to point you into 2 helpful resources. Both are online, and they come with an accompanying workbook. The first is called the Trauma Bond Recovery Course. It's created by a dear friend of mine, Lisa Sonni, who's known here on this platform as Stronger Than Before. It's a 12-step program that's designed to help you break the trauma bond, to break the intense connection that you have with a partner. And then there's my new course called First Step to Leaving a Narcissist. It also has a workbook, both in a digital as well as a print version. This is going to help you clear the confusion that you feel in your head, built and created by the deception and manipulation, so that you get enough clarity to decide what you're going to do next. But in addition to these 2 resources, I want to give you a few suggestions on how to start your healing. First of all, know that healing is going to take some time. There's going to be bad moments and good moments to every day. So what really helps is to first create a daily routine or schedule to combat the downtimes. Know what you're going to do during the morning or the evenings. Have something in place to help you get through the rough patches. So I recommend that you actually create a list. Create things that you enjoy doing. Like, be proactive about this. Maybe it's a list of friends to call or the favorite movies that you've missed out on. Maybe you have a go-to exercise, but plan ahead so that when you hit one of these bad moments, you can utilize it in order to cope with the pain of it. That's my first suggestion. Number 2, don't run away from the pain. I know no one likes the pain, and our initial reaction is to avoid it. But when you do this, you're actually delaying your recovery. It's important we learn how to survive uncomfortable feelings. Remind yourself that what you're feeling is a feeling, not the same thing as reality, and that all feelings are temporary. Think about it. When the last time you've been hungry, maybe you hadn't eaten all day, if you wait it out, how long does the actual feeling of hunger pangs last? It doesn't. It goes away. That's the same thing that happens with grief or sadness, loneliness, and anger. It's because feelings aren't a trait. They're not permanent. They're actually a state. So if we wait them out, they're not sustainable. They're only temporary and will fade. So don't get into the habit of distracting yourself or avoiding pain. Learn how to experience and move through the pain. Learn how to make peace with the pain and find a way to survive that. Because if you don't, if you just distract, it will come back the next empty moment that you have. You won't be healing yourself. You're just avoiding that momentary uncomfortableness. So that's my second tip. My third tip is I want you to embrace the rediscovery of yourself. During this whole trauma bond experience, you've lost who you once were. You stopped paying attention to things that mattered. Maybe you stopped listening to the things that you enjoyed, or the movies that really made you happy, or seeing the friends that really are important to you. You lost track of who you are. I wonder if you even know what your favorite color is. In order to make that relationship work, you gave up on yourself. So now it's time to begin again, to try new things and experiment with things, to just rediscover who you are today. Because here's the hard truth. The person that you were before you met this individual, the partner, is gone. He or she is not coming back, but a new, different version of you will. Somebody who's wiser and stronger, a survivor. You're like a phoenix who's being reborn. That toxic relationship may have burned yourself down and burned your life to ash, but you're rising out of that pile of rubble, someone even more incredible. Do I wish that it happened to you? Absolutely not. I didn't want it even on myself. No one deserves what you and I went through, but you're discovering and reclaiming a new you. So treat it like an adventure. Embrace the experience and take chances. If this has helped you today, please drop me a comment and let me know. And if it spoke to you, be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss future videos and episodes a lot like this. I want you to know that you're not alone, that we're in this together and we're going to heal together.